Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated.
And welcome to another episode of Nerds Amalgamated. How's it going there, Professor?
Pretty well.
Can you believe it? It's been 250 episodes together?
Yeah.
Damn, we've gone very far.
Not far enough!
Fuck. Man, we had so many fun memories doing these 250 episodes. Oh, man.
If that's what you want to call them.
Yeah, I mean, we had our first supernova adventure, where we actually had our first, we had a table, and we get to meet people. And not as like convention guests, but as being part of the convention at the time.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. You got any fun memories, Professor, during your time in these 250 episodes?
You're putting me on the spot now. I didn't know you were going to ask me that, and nothing's coming to mind.
Oh man, I just didn't realize that until now. Still nothing?
No. I mean, I want to say something snarky, like the best time was the time we took a break and I didn't speak to you everywhere. I'm not sure if that's too mean or...
Yeah, that does feel very mean. Very, very mean. What's up?
You'll get over it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Like every other time. Anyways, so our topics for this week. So we have SteamOS and compatibility. The Hydron Collider now making gold.
Sorry,
and Europe is winning the fight against AI. So, Professor, take it away with your snarkiness.
What did you call the collider?
Hydron Collider?
Hadron.
Hydron.
What?
Hi, as in H-Y. Hi.
No, it's not.
We're gonna continue. We're gonna start fighting over like what's the right
pronunciation.
What's that?
Hadron.
I thought it was Hydron.
No, it never has been. What parallel universe have you come from?
Maybe the one that... Oh, okay, it is Hadron. Right, Hadron. Right, my bad. I think I came back from the universe where the penguins destroyed everything. But yeah, take it away, Professor, with your usual snarkiness on our first topic.
Well, our first topic is the new compatibility rating system for SteamOS devices, which means SteamOS is finally coming to devices other than the Steam Deck. Officially coming to the Legion Go S. Steam has announced that they are expanding the Deck Verified program and introducing SteamOS compatibility ratings. The new ratings are a system to define the compatibility of basically games on Linux, because SteamOS is Linux, and the goal of this is to check that games will work on hardware that isn't made by Valve and is running some form of Linux. Officially only SteamOS, but the results of it are probably going to be generalizable to Linux. But it's not as in-depth as the Steam Deck Verified program, which theoretically involves actually testing the game to make sure it performs well and has optimized graphic settings, which has been a bit controversial recently because there's been a few games that have gotten patches and failed to run properly on SteamOS, or on Steam Decks. But the exciting thing is, this means that SteamOS is closer than it's ever been to a full public release. And by growing the field of SteamOS, the field of Linux grows, until eventually we rule the world.
You say that every night, like Pinky in the Brain. And it fails miserably most of the time.
Yeah, you're Pinky, I'm the brain.
Really? I always thought it was the other way around, since you love to be Pinky.
What do you mean I love to be Pinky?
Being all hyperactive and all.
You are either completely delusional, or just trying to get a rise out of me. I'm not sure which.
I prefer the latter.
Fair enough. Anyway, the SteamOS. 2025 could be the year of the Linux desktop. We're at about 2.5% according to the Steam hardware survey at them.
So what's feedback like from from Steam users about this news? Have they been excited about it, or have they been okay about it? What's the
Well, the people in the circles that I run in are all very excited because this does mean more compatibility for Linux. Like, Proton is incredible. The fact that you can take almost any Windows game and run it on Linux is incredible. It's at the point now where, of the games that I own on Steam, it's basically only games that deliberately block Linux
Hmm.
that won't work, like Apex Legends, which worked perfectly fine until they decided to block Linux.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they claim there were too many cheaters in Linux.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like Linux has been growing in popularity. I mean, a couple of content creators on YouTube have decided to join the Linux party. I mean, recently PewDiePie came out with his video about it. So it
Yeah.
is cool to see the Linux brand rising.
Yeah, I don't follow PewDiePie, but I know he's been doing Linux for about a year now,
Yeah.
and that he's dabbled in it before. This is like he's gone over to completely past. And while I don't think Linux is completely there for everyone, 90% of people wouldn't know the difference if they put in the effort to learn how to use Linux, because things are slightly different to Windows. And a lot of people think, well, why would I want to switch to Linux? I use Windows. Windows is easier. Not thinking, I've used Windows all my life. I was brought up on it. That's why it's easier. I'm used to the Windows problems, not to the Linux problems.
Yeah.
Linux has a different set of problems.
What's the biggest problem that they encounter for
My
Linux
biggest
users?
complaint about Linux is that Wayland. So there's two ways to run a desktop in Linux. The backend systems are called Xorg 11 and Wayland. And this is like a very high level work. But X is about 40 years old, so far predating Elon's attempt to steal the trademark. And because it's 40 years old, it's picked up a lot of security issues and a lot of problems along the way. It's great at what it does, and it's got some features that are great features to have, but it also isn't. Well, I don't personally work on either X or Wayland, so I don't know how hard it is to develop for, but I understand it's basically got so much baggage because it's 40 years old that they're for about 12 years now? No, longer than that. 15 years or so. There's been an attempt to replace it with something called Wayland. And I use Wayland because I want to have the same environment on my desktop and my laptop. And my laptop doesn't like X for some reason. I get screen tearing and it's just an ugly mess, so I switched to Wayland there. But Wayland has a bunch of security features. And that ties into my biggest complaint, which is that we've been getting into streaming lately. The biggest problem with streaming on Wayland is that up until very recently, well, the near future, because they've just recently merged the patch. I don't think they've released it yet, but they've merged the patch that should fix this. So I'm complaining about something that probably is going to be fixed for me by the end of it'll take that long for it to percolate through my system. You could get it faster if you really want. But OBS and other screen recording software doesn't always work the best on. Like with OBS, I can only do a full screen capture. I can't do a
Windowed screen.
yeah. So I've got to keep that in mind when I'm streaming, that I don't accidentally switch to the wrong window, the wrong screen, and dox myself.
Oh shit. Yeah, we don't want to deal with that problem.
No.
I mean, it's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of, because I'm looking at the comment section for on the Steam page, and a lot of them are really hyped for it. And a couple of them are loving it. A couple of them are saying, "Can you please make something?" One comment said, "Can you make something that would replace Windows? I'm tired of Windows 10, and I don't want to ever hear about Windows 11. I only have a PC for playing games, streaming on YouTube, watching movies, and browsing the internet. Yeah, I sometimes use Paint, but that's all that. Please make SteamOS for PC. Millions of gamers are tired of Windows and Bill Gates. Thank you very much, Bazzy G."
Okay, does he realize Bill Gates hasn't been part of Microsoft for...
Years.
Yeah, it's getting close to 2 decades now. I think he left in like 2008.
I think it's just the whole guilt by association, but yeah.
People still, I see this not just with this Basie G guy. I see it so often. Whenever an article is about Microsoft, there will be a thumbnail of Bill Gates.
I mean, it's the same case with like if you have Steam, you'll always have a picture of Gabe Newell out there.
Yeah, but Gabe Newell is still CEO of Steam,
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
that, so it makes sense to have him there. Bill Gates has been uninvolved in Microsoft for nearly 20 years. But I like the comment that comes immediately after, replying to Bazzy G, saying they are literally doing that. Because they are. SteamOS is going to be hopefully a desktop operating system, because you can take a Steam Deck running SteamOS, which is Valve's custom Linux, and put it into desktop mode and use it as a like, people do real work using a Steam Deck as their primary. They have it hooked up to a monitor and a mouse and keyboard, and it just runs as like a laptop. It's not the most powerful thing out there, but it does a surprisingly good. So this
Somewhat.
this is the first step to getting SteamOS onto other devices.
Yeah. Someone wrote a comment interestingly on another one, Slick Drizzle, on the 13th of May. He wrote this: SteamOS is essentially just a Valve fork of Arch Linux. There's no reason for you to be begging the forums for an official SteamOS distro for non-handheld devices when you've just been able to install Ubuntu, Mint, Manjaro, Arch, Fedora, Pop! OS, Endeavor OS for years now. Would it be nice if they had one? Yes, but you can literally just install a distro right now and have what you want.
That's true, but a lot of people don't have the motivation to learn how to do it. It's not a hard process at all. In fact, I've been tempted to take an old laptop and see if I can get my wife, who is not tech savvy, to go through and install Linux on it without like holding her hand through it. Because I want to see what the Linux experience is like for someone who isn't tech savvy.
How's it going
Uh,
so far?
I haven't done it, so
Oh, okay.
I've been tempted. But she won't let
Oh.
me do it on her primary laptop because she needs that for work or something silly like that. Yeah, you can install any other distro. There's even distros that clone SteamOS and try to be gaming focused, like Bazite. But I run Debian, so you can use Debian or Arch or Ubuntu, sorry, or literally anything, and still get mostly the same experience. I'm tempted to, next time I rebuild my computer, to use a different operating system. I'm thinking of using NixOS because I like the idea of being able to program my operating system configuration, and just if I ever have to wipe it, I can just reinstall it from a defined list of what's installed.
Here's another comment
The
that's
last time I had to do that
hmm,
was like the weekend before an assignment was due, so I didn't have time.
that's fair. Here's another interesting comment that I just saw. It's from Wizardmon on 14th of May. He wrote saying, "You can think of the SteamOS compatible tag as a quote minimum supported system specifications tag, which games have been doing forever now. In order to be supported by SteamOS, it will be quote has to run on this software, check these boxes, and able to run on at least this level of hardware Steam tech." What I was wondering is how is anti cheat devs have been singling out specifically the Steam Deck hardware to allow and nothing else. So when this change goes live, will those devs have to stop specifically only allowing the Steam Deck into their anti cheat and allow different devices? What happens when they don't want to comply with this new? It's already sadly a battle just to get them to allow the Steam Deck. So I just want to see some pushback on this from some devs.
Yeah, that's I think the game Infinity Nikki runs on Linux,
Hmm.
but only on the Steam Deck because it checks, and if it doesn't find whatever markers that is running on her Steam Deck, it will block you from playing on not my type of game, but I've seen people complain about that online, and it's a sad thing to see because that's fragmenting Linux. And that's the big problem, the anti-cheat. Because anti-cheat, if it detects anything that isn't normal, and normal for games is Windows, will block you. And for some anti-cheats, it's simply a case of ticking a box that says, yes, I will want people to play this on Linux, and it will work. For others, it's blocking non-Steam Deck devices. And for others,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work at all. In fact, I have a little fun conspiracy theory that I don't actually that there was a time a few months back, maybe a year ago, that a lot of games blocked Linux suddenly. So Apex Legends used to run fine until they said too many cheaters, go away. And my little conspiracy theory is that Microsoft is pushing them to say that because Microsoft doesn't want to lose any more market share to Linux. And yeah, I don't actually believe that that's happening because that is a ridiculous thing to happen. I could see Microsoft being that spiteful, but I think if it was happening, someone would have come forward and said so. Like Microsoft has historically been extremely spiteful
Oh
about.
yeah, they're famous for the anti-competitive behavior
Yeah.
from the get-go.
So yeah, it's an exciting future. I'm hoping that as the market share of Linux grows, more game developers will either allow anti-cheat to run in Proton or release Linux-specific builds. Historically, it's been a bit hit and miss for that. Some games actually run better under Proton than they do as native Linux because the native Linux version hasn't been updated in years. And some games, modding can be a bit of a challenge on Linux. I play Armor Free, and getting that running was a bit of an adventure because each game on Linux under Proton is basically its own Windows installation. So it takes a bit of fiddling to install things like TeamSpeak alongside a game so that the game can control TeamSpeak. So Armor Free has a mod called Task Force Arrowhead Radio, which hooks into TeamSpeak and emulates like walkie-talkies.
Oh yeah.
So you only hear people who are standing next to you. If you walk away, you can use your radio to talk to them. If you're too far away, the radio starts to get crackly and drop out.
Aha,
A
nice,
really
nice.
cool simulation because I'm a dork for that sort of stuff. But other games, modding is a bit harder. There's one I want to play, which I haven't gotten around to because I have so many games in my backlog, but Stalker Gamma. I've been following their Discord, and they've made it a lot easier than it used to be to run Stalker Gamma on Linux. It used to be to get it running, you had to install it on Windows and then copy the files across because the installer was written in PowerShell and relied on a bunch of Windows specific stuff. So, it's not entirely smooth sailing, but it's a lot smoother than it was the last time I tried using Linux. Well, I've dabbled in it and used it on servers and stuff every now and then, but the first time I tried Linux, way back in like 2009, was a much harder time to get going. Especially because in 2009, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was using a distro that hadn't been updated in several years.
I'm curious to ask though. So, with this sort of news that's coming out, do you reckon we're seeing the well, I would say I don't know, presumptuous to say this, the resurrection of handheld gaming?
Yeah, games are specifically targeting the Steam Deck as a minimum specs,
Hmm.
as you said earlier. And it's not just the Steam Deck. We've seen half a dozen different products come out since the Steam Deck that do the same thing. It is sort of a renaissance of handheld gaming entirely by the fact that we can now fit an entire computer into your hand.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay, obviously, we've had handheld gaming with
the
Nintendo for
PS,
years.
yeah, and the PSP as well.
Yeah, the PSP, but they have to run special games that are made specifically for their hardware.
Yeah.
Now we've got the Steam Deck, which can run anything my computer can.
So that means game developers don't have to like prioritize for different for port don't have to deal with porting issues in that case.
Yeah, yeah, the porting is a lot, there's a lot less going on with porting games these days because consoles are running on x86. The Steam Deck runs on x86, so if you can run it on a Steam Deck, you can definitely run it on a PlayStation or an Xbox. The issue is that you need special compilers to get it running because they still try to lock it down a bit. But going the other way from console to PC is so much easier now than it used to be because everything is running on the same hardware.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, this, like you said, it's going to be a good, interest. Going to be a good, great future for people using Steam Decks, and I think game developers are going to be very happy with this sort decision as well.
Yeah, as a game developer, I would want more people to play my game, so I'd want it to be available everywhere.
And I hope your game produces gold like the Hadron Collider. Bad segue.
You tried. That was alright. That was better than usual.
Yeah, yeah.
The Hadron Collider making gold. Literal alchemy from lead to gold.
So does that mean alchemy is coming back as a science now?
No,
Ah,
alchemy was a pseudoscience. They just had ideas that happened to be possible with real science.
but I always thought for the longest time that the goal for alchemy was just to transfer materials to gold, and like any material like lead or rubber or something, gold.
Not just that, it was also about uh, eternal life.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Fat chance we'll ever get to that level.
Yeah, probably not in the way they thought.
But
Uh,
yeah, so this was a paper published in Physics Review Journal. The Alice collaboration reports measurements that quantify the transmutation of lead into gold in CERN's Large Hadron Collider.
yeah, so we've known that you could do this for at least a century. Basically, since they discovered radioactivity, it's been known that with the right process, you could turn, and now it's kind of been discovered accidentally that you can turn lead into gold by a different mechanism. So, atoms are made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And it's the number of protons and neutrons that tell you what kind of atom it is and how heavy it is, whether it's positively or negatively charged. So if you take lead and bombard it with neutrons or protons, I don't recall which you need to get from lead to gold anymore, but you basically spray it with protons or neutrons and you can get them to stick into the atom and turn it into another element. So this is a bit of a different way to that though. And just looked it up. Lead has an atomic weight of 82. Gold, I get a whole bunch of bloody ads about how to buy and sell gold. Gold has a weight of 79.
Okay.
So you need to make the lead a bit lighter to turn it into gold. So you would need to split off some of the protons and neutrons to turn it into gold. So this new mechanism involves near-miss collisions. So rather than actually hitting each other, which is the intent of the experiment, they're taking two lead atoms and shooting them at each other in the Large Hadron, which creates a quark-gluon plasma. I love physics, so many fun words. But because atoms are really small and it's really hard to aim them just right, so if they miss and don't actually touch each other but come close enough, well, so there's a bunch of different forces in play here. The strong and weak nuclear forces hold the atoms together and also if I'm remembering correctly, the strong nuclear force holds the atom together, the weak one wants to push it apart. But the range of these forces is really, but when they come close enough together at 99.999993% of the speed of light, the electromagnetic field of the strong nuclear force basically grabs the nucleus of each nucleus, pulls on the other, and sometimes one of them will pull 3 protons out of the other nucleus and turn it into gold. Now, because the gold has a different weight to the lead, which is what the experiment is tuned for, the lead will continue to fly through its path in the collider. The gold will spiral out of control and crash into the walls.
I'm trying to picture this in my head. It feels like Oh yes, we're gonna have so in my head it's like two cars gonna collide against each other. One deliberately misses and crashes into a wall, and yeah, that's how we got gold.
But the one that misses
Yeah.
just clips the other car, and its wing mirror comes off and gets stuck. The car analogy starts to break down around this
Y-
point.
yep.
And I've definitely heard the car analogy for the Large Hadron Collider before, because a lot of the experiments they do there are basically the equivalent of shooting cars at each other and looking at what comes out of the explosion to try to work out what they're made out.
Yeah. So with this gold that's coming out of, is it visible to the naked eye, or is it
No, it's individual atoms.
ah
So they've got a source in this article. So they use 0 degree calorimeters to count the interactions between nuclei and measure the different weights of the elements that were being created. So they had lead, thallium, mercury, and gold, and it produces gold at a rate of approximately 89,000 nuclei per second from lead. The problem is these are individual atoms, basically. And the size of an atom, if I'm remembering correctly, is about 25 nanometers.
that's very, very, very tiny.
Yeah. And then the gold goes spinning off out of the magnetic field that contains the experiment and crashes into the wall of the collider, where it ceases to exist because it explodes in neutrons and protons.
Ah, but that's interesting how this process it requires a lot of energy to for this discovery to occur.
Yeah, here we go. I also see that between 2015 and 2018, they
Mm.
produced 86 billion gold nuclei, which means that if you could capture all that gold and form it into an ingot, the ingot would weigh 29 picograms.
Which is still very, very tiny.
Yeah, that's 2.9 times 10 to the negative 11 grams. Newer experiments are producing more gold, but you're not going to get rich off this.
Nah, nah.
The experiment, like, if there was some rogue scientist at the Large Hadron Collider who hijacked it to create gold, they would never, ever in a billion years pay off the cost of building the,
Nope.
not to mention the operating cost. This thing takes a lot of electricity.
And it's also when you compare like the rate of production from a hadron collider to the natural formation, it seems like the natural formation is much more quicker than this. Like how many years will it take for gold in a hadron collider to be actually visible to the naked eye?
That's a good question. So, a single atom of gold producing billions of, but what is the molar weight of? Okay, so it's almost 200 grams per mole. 200 grams of gold is actually a significant amount, but 1 mole is 6.02214076 times 10 to the 23 atoms.
I love how you're using your chemistry skills to
Oh,
calculate this.
chemistry! Chemistry! This is physics. Get out of here. Physics is the only real science. The rest is just stamp collecting.
You're gonna get a lot of science bros coming to our Discord right now and say, "Hey, wait a minute, you're wrong."
And I've just seen a picture of Avogadro,
Huh?
the scientist who came up with the idea of the mold. Look, I'm not usually judgmental, but he's not the most handsome man around. Take a look at this, DJ.
Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing it as well. Oh, what the hell, man?
Like, surely the portrait maker could have
Done a better picture.
flattered him a bit more.
So here's another interesting thing to wonder though. So if it could generate gold with this method, you reckon we could see other forms of elements being made with with this sort of experimentation?
Yeah. In fact, what I'm excited to see is that scientists are always trying to create new elements. I'm excited to see if they can take this method and create more elements that would be difficult to create with standard techniques.
And also, what would be interesting is this is this sort of findings is makes us understand nuclear reactions as well in terms of how nuclear warheads can be made and all that.
Well, it's kind of irrelevant to nuclear warheads.
Hmm.
Nuclear warheads are about fusion and fission. They're not about making atoms nearly crash into it.
That's true. At least it's not as crazy as what's happening in Europe with their battle against AI. Ha ha ha. I know it's still a terrible segue.
Your first one was better.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair. So, European film and TV dubbers are at the forefront of a growing resistance against the use of artificial intelligence in voice acting, driven by concerns of a job security, artistic integrity, and unauthorized use of their voices. You mean like every other country that's been doing that lately?
Yeah, everybody's having their voices and faces stolen. The AI, it's coming for your face.
Okay, I'm waiting for that one day when someone in Hollywood does the redneck voice like in South Park and say the whole "They took our jeeps, they took our jeeps," and have like a meeting of Hollywood actors going like, "They took my jeep, they took our jeeps."
Yeah, the robots are taking your jobs and your face.
So yeah, Europe is fighting back though. So on April 1st, several German dubbing artists, including actors that provide German voices for Ben Affleck, Angelina Jolie, and SpongeBob SquarePants, released a video which went viral, warning that their jobs are at risk with the rise of films dubbed with quote artificial voices from robots. These robots were trained with our voices without consent illegally. And there's been an online petition titled "Touche pas ma voix VF," don't touch my dubbing, which was started by the SFA, the French Union of Performing Artists, and dubbing associations Les Voix, that warns that synchronization artists, with the highly talented writers and technicians who work together, form an industry whose quality is recognized worldwide, are, quote, in danger from AI technology. And a couple of other countries have joined forces in putting clauses in contracts, actually. So, for example, Italy, the National Dubbing Association, ANAD, has introduced new contract clauses specifically prohibiting the cloning or reusing of a voice actor's performance without explicit consent and compensation.
That's good.
Yeah, Spain is considering doing that as well, where the negotiations are ongoing. The impact to this is has been significant. A couple of high profile projects have been halted, and they praise the effectiveness of collective action. So, what do you reckon though? Like, do you reckon that Europe's got what? Okay, actually, now I think about it, where do you think Europe has done right that American has got wrong?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's gone different?
I mean, the public advocacy has been insane. Like, there 215,000 signatures from the petition. You've got contract clauses, as I said earlier. You got also unions. Unions are powerful over there.
Yeah, I think
It's-
that's the big difference.
Hmm.
If unions go on strike in Europe, then people pay attention. If unions go on strike in America, people get upset.
Although their damage is it can be painful. I mean, look at the remember the Screenwriters Guild strike and how many TV shows and projects went under as a result.
Yeah, it's painful, but it's the sort of thing that it's that or get everything replaced with AI slot.
And what's also interesting is the fact that the European Union also had a law enacted that requires clear labeling of AI generated content and mandates fair compensation for content holders, giving creators some legal tools to protect their work. However, dubbers and other creatives are lobbying to close loopholes such as exemptions for text and data mining that could still allow AI companies to exploit copyrighted material without proper consent or compensation.
No.
Why, what happened?
That. They're still going to use copyrighted stuff.
Yeah. There are, there are loopholes to it that, and people will find ways how to get around it. But mind you, policymakers will strengthen it, strengthen the act's implementation, and there will be stronger enforcement. No doubt.
Yeah, well, either way, I'm excited to see that this is at least some sort of human art.
I hear. Although mind you, there are always success stories of AI being used positively in the dubbing scene, though.
How so?
So, Netflix and Amazon have successfully implemented AI dubbing to provide multilingual versions of popular shows, like significantly expanding their global reach to making content accessible to audiences in many different languages.
Yeah, some of that AI dubbing is actually scarily,
Hmm.
but it does still miss a lot.
Yeah.
I could see it being used for like a news broadcast, but something like TV show, I don't think it should be used for that.
Yeah. And then it's not just TV shows and stuff. Companies like Microsoft have integrated AI translation and dubbing into platforms such as LinkedIn to enable real time translation and voiceover of user generated content as well. And AI dubbing can help break down language barriers and make content more accessible to people with hearing implements by generating voiceovers and subtitles as well.
What I'm
So
waiting
there
for is the day I can have a tricorder.
I think it's a case. I think it's the case of companies using AI. It's just a lazy approach to just actually going in there and translating the work from scratch.
Yeah, the human translation will still be better at this point. You
Hmm.
have an expert. If you have an amateur, like I remember, was it Robert Mugabe at his funeral? They had a sign language interpreter.
Oh,
Would
no, it wasn't Mugabe. It was Nelson Mandela.
that's it.
Oh, dude, that funeral was just. Apparently, he was a fake a sign language interpreter. I was like, "What the hell is this
Yeah,
guy doing?" Oh man, the
like
stories that came out of it.
yeah, my point is that a good translator is much better quality than an AI translator at this stage. The AI translator would still have use for translating stuff that requires real time translation. So if you were like an emergency broadcast announcing an evacuation because of a bushfire, you might want to translate that into a couple of different languages.
Yeah, I
So
can see that. Yeah,
something like that an AI translation would be acceptable. But I think the AI translation can't be human to replace humans yet.
yeah. And I think what's also interesting is the fact that the government the government action towards this has been really strong in terms of, okay, we're going to introduce these laws and enforce them very strictly. Well, when you see in countries like America, for example, we haven't. It's been everyone just looks at it and just walks away and still does it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think Europe is. I think America should look at Europe's models and try and do something about it in terms of stopping AI hurting Hollywood. Because
I mean, Europe's got its issues, but I think we could all learn a lot from Europe.
yeah, yeah, that I can. And on that note, we'll take a short break and we'll come back with the shout outs and wacky movie. And we would like to let our viewers know that this episode was sponsored by Res, energy drink that gives you focus and energy for the long game. Crafted from traditional herbs and quality extracts, it relieves fatigue and eye strain, supports eye health, supports mental endurance and stamina to give you hit points in real life. So, Res, don't leave home without.
And you can use our code NERDS, NERDS, at drinkres.com to get a discount.
So, on to our shout outs. On the 15th of May 2025, it's the 10th anniversary of Mad Max Fury Road. You're familiar with that movie, right?
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh, so fun. That was such a fun movie. For those who are not familiar with Mad Max Fury Road, this is a movie set in a post-apocalyptic desert wasteland where petrol and water are scarce commodities. It follows Max Rockatansky. Thank you. Rockatansky, who joins forces with Imperator Furiosa and against Warlord Immortan Joe and his army, leading a lengthy road battle. Oh man, that road battle. Oh boy.
Yes, the entire movie is a car chase scene. It is glorious.
Yep. So, Mad Max Fury Road had a lengthy gestation period. In 1987, George Miller had the idea of making a Mad Max installation that was, quote, almost a continuous chase. He got an idea for the plot in 1998 when he was walking across the street in Los Angeles, and about a year later, while traveling from Los Angeles to Australia, a story in which, quote, violent marauders were fighting not for oil or for material goods, but for human beings coalesced. The film entered pre-production at 20th Century Fox in the early 2000s and was set to star Mel Gibson, who had portrayed Max Rockatansky in the first 3 films of the series, with Sigourney Weaver contemplated for the female co-lead, which would later become Imperator Furiosa, suggested by Gibson himself after they had worked together in Peter Weir's The Year of Living Dangerously, and Miller agreed to that idea.
Well, I'm glad we got what we did then, because I can't imagine Mel Gibson being like, how old was he? He would have been in 60s.
He would have been in his 30s.
No, in Fury Road when it came out.
Oh, yeah, he would be in his 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, he was born in 56. So he's 69 years old now. So okay, he would have been in his 59 when Mad Max Fury came out. So maybe he could have pulled it off. I'm not sure.
I mean, if he had the body of Tom Cruise, maybe he could pull it off. I mean,
Yeah, he's definitely aged.
Yep.
So he's aged. I don't know if he could have pulled it off though, and I don't think Sigourney Weaver was the right choice for Furiosa.
She's
see Sigourney doing that.
I don't know. I mean, she's been a badass for a long time. I mean, she made her name through Aliens. Come on.
Yeah, she's amazing, but she's a different kind of amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I see where you come from. Yeah. In July 2010. Oh,
Sigourney Weaver's even older.
really?
Yeah, she's 75.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think they're both a bit too old action heroes.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
I don't know, I could be completely wrong. Let me know next time you go to a parallel universe where they did make this movie.
All right, I'll make that trip. Maybe on the weekend. So in July 2010, Miller announced plans to shoot 2 Mad Max films back to back, entitled Mad Max Fury Road and Mad Max Furiosa. And we all know what happened to Furiosa recently.
Tell me what happened. I never actually got around to seeing Furiosa.
It was just basically a prequel of how Furiosa came to being, and it was a financial flop to the point where, if I recall, Miller said that, I don't think we'll make another Mad Max movie.
No, you got the entire wrong idea.
Yeah, he said, I'm looking at the future section of this.
I mean, it's pretty well reviewed. 7.5 out of 10.
It was well reviewed, sure, but it flopped a lot with terms of how much money it made. Mind you, even though the budget's like 168 million, box office it came out with like 174.3 million. You have to take into account like the amount of money they spent for marketing this thing.
Hollywood accounting.
Yep. But yeah, in terms of future, in February 2025, Miller stated in an interview with Vulture that he's still interested in making The Wasteland despite Furiosa's underperformance at the box office, and would so if given permission by Warner Bros., but admitted that he wanted to focus on other projects first.
Yeah, well, that's kind of been the way. He goes away and does some other things and comes back and does a Mad Max.
And then also, in the days after the film's disappointing open weekend, pundits suggested it lowered the chances that Warner Brothers would greenlight Mad Max The Wasteland, a second Fury Road prequel focusing on Max Rockatansky that Miller had teased for years. At that time, the Hollywood Reporter Hollywood Reporter reported that The Wasteland was not yet in development. Miller had previously clarified that The Wasteland's source material had not been adapted into the screenplay. He also said that he's waiting to see the reception on Furiosa before taking more concrete steps to develop The Wasteland into a feature film. Yeah, well, it's gonna be in development hell for a while. I'll tell you that.
I hope not, because George Miller's not getting any younger.
Oh yeah, that's true, that's true.
He's 80 years old this year.
What's up?
He's 80 years old.
Ooh,
So, he's getting up there. Hopefully he can actually pull off another Mad Max or two.
Scorsese? He's as old. He must be older than Miller. Dude's like 82. What the hell?
Yeah.
He's still pulling moves. But yeah, I hope we see another Miller movie. We see another Mad Max movie with Miller at the helm. I'm hoping. But continuing on. Here's an interesting thing with Furo. After unexpected heavy rains caused wildflowers to grow in the desert around Broken Hill, filming was moved from Broken Hill back to Namibia in November 2011. What are the odds, eh?
Yeah, that was 2011 when we had all the flooding.
Yep. You imagine the middle of a Mad Max. Imagine you're on Mad Max, and all of a sudden, you're like, "Hey, what's all this greenery going on here? I didn't remember all this greenery here."
Yeah, I could see it as like part of an epilogue, like how at the end of Beyond Thunderdome it shows the children have made it in Never Never Land. Isn't that what they call it?
I don't know. Maybe.
It's been a long time since I've seen Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So like we're traveling to Never Never Land and our plane crashed. So Max gets them hooked up with the pilot who flies them the rest of the way, and it turns out to be Sydney.
Oh, geez. So Miller said that he
got
didn't.
Confused. It's Tomorrowland. It's another classic Aussie movie, We of the Never Know, which is not like sci-fi, but I've probably confused it for that.
Tomorrowland.
No, Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland.
Yeah, the kids are not the best educated.
But Miller said that he didn't feel that he had to top the production design of the previous films in the series. Instead, he wanted the design to harken back to the earlier films and reflect the changes of the past 30 years. Colin Gibson, the production designer, said filmmakers developed an internally consistent history to explain the film's look and justify its use of hot rod. He designed the vehicles in the film, some of which are constructed as early as 2003, and all of which were fully functional. Of the 150 vehicles constructed, only 88 survived to the end of filming, with the others built to facilitate their intended method of destruction. The War Rig, the film's most prominent vehicle, was made by combining a Tatra 815 and Chevrolet Fleetmaster and fusing a Volkswagen Beetle to the hull, among other modifications. The cars were designed with an emphasis on detail and characterizations. An effort was made to show the various characters' attempts to recycle the remains of civilization and their feeling of guilt and loss.
Yeah, the cars in this movie are absolutely nuts in the best way.
Oh, it's not as nuts as that. The flame shooting guitarist guy. Yeah, that guy.
Yes. And that thing actually worked.
Oh yeah.
The Doof Warrior was actually played by a real. I think he's blind, a blind guitarist.
The flame shooting guitarist is Australian artist musician Sean Hape, whose father is Maori, so his surname is Hape. Better known as Iota. In the interview on Vice, he said the guitar weighed 132 pounds and shot real gas-powered flames, which he controlled using the whammy bar.
Yeah, he's not actually blind in real life, actually.
Yeah.
I must have remembered that wrong. But yeah, it shot actual flames, was hooked up to the actual amplifiers and all that.
Yeah, he said here, the name was Doof Warrior. That was his name. He said that he has said that he learned to act by necessity. In the country, everyone is ridiculed, so I put on a mask and become tough and rowdy. The long hair, the slouching, the spitting, lots of drinking piss. Man. Over 80% of the effects were practical effects, including stunts, makeup, and sets. CGI was using sparingly, mainly to enhance the Namibian landscape, remove stunt rigging, and for Imperator Furios's left arm, which is a prosthetic limb. Tom Hardy suffered a broken nose during filming when Charlize Theron accidentally elbowed him. She was wearing a green arm cast at the time, which was used so the graphics artist could digitally remove Furios's arm. Oh, that must have been painful. Although the character Mad Max is Australian, he has yet to be played by an Australian actor. Mel Gibson, the first Mad Max, was born in the US, although raised in Sydney, in Sydney, Australia. Tom Hardy, the second Mad Max, was born in England. I would have loved. I don't know who could play as Mad Max if they do a third one. If Tom Hardy decides to pass it to someone.
Yeah, lots of people could.
I would love. Okay, this may be a wild one. I would love to see Steve Irwin's son as Mad Max.
Right.
Come on, it'd be perfect. An Australian icon playing an Australian icon. Come on, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Just as long as he doesn't sing.
Okay, yeah, all right. Yep, all right. I could totally see that. Yep.
I mean,
The
you
film
see
is
those ads of him singing, advertising, "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here."
Oh no, I don't want to think about it now.
Yeah, it was abysmal.
I don't want to think about that now. But thank you, Professor. Now it's in my head. Oh, this film is considered an Ozploitation
So here
movie.
we go. He has
Yep.
been played by an Australian.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Bren Foster played him in the 2015 video game.
Oh, that's just a video game, man. That doesn't actually count.
I mean, the actor who played him in the game did the motion capture and could actually play him in real life because he's got a black belt in Taekwondo, Hapkido, Hwarangdo, and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Very nice. What you'll have to send me the resume of this guy so I can have a look.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't
this movie
say that
was
like one in charge.
okay. Yeah, this movie is considered an Ozploitation movie, an Australian genre and or Australian exploitation movie. Is it though?
Why? What do you mean?
I mean, yeah, I mean, Australian, as I said earlier, like even though the character is Australian, it's yet to be played by an Australian actor. Like
Yeah.
Ozploitation, like
But Mel Gibson grew up in Australia. The
yeah, that's true. That's true.
character is Australian. All of the other actors are Australian. The setting
Yeah.
is Australia.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see. By the way, this the guy who plays this Immortan Joe, he played as the villain Toe Cutter in the first Mad Max movie.
Yeah, they recycle actors a lot for these movies. Like the pilot appears in Mad Max 2 and 3, but is an entirely unrelated character.
Yeah, yeah. Also, as for the look of the film, director George Miller laid down two stipulations for the production to follow. Firstly, the cinematography would be as colorful as possible in order to differentiate the film from other post-apocalyptic movies, which typically have bleak, desaturated colors. And secondly, the art direction would be as beautiful as possible, as Miller reasoned that people living in the post-apocalypse would try to find whatever scraps of beauty they could find in the meager environment. I mean, makes sense. I mean, the movie was really visually stunning in terms of the color of the sand and the skies and
Yeah, it's a gorgeously shot movie.
indeed. On the 15th of May 1836, Francis Bailey observes Bailey beads. So Bailey beads are bright spots seen during total or annular eclipses of the sun. They're named for Francis Bailey, an English astronomer who called attention to them after seeing them during an annular eclipse on May 15th, 1836. Just before the moon's disk covers the sun, the narrow crescent of sunlight may be broken in several places by irregularities on the edge of the moon's disk, the resulting array of spots roughly resembling a string of beads. And it's not safe to view Bailey's beads or the diamond ring effect without proper eye protection because in both cases, the photosphere is still visible.
Yes, do not look at the sun even if you cannot see the sun.
Yep. The term Bailey beads then came into use after Bailey describes the phenomena to the Royal Astronomical Society in December 1836. Having observed the solar eclipse, he reported that, quote, when the cusps of the sun were about 40 degrees asunder, a row of lucid points, like a string of beads, irregular in size and distance from each other, suddenly formed around that part of the circumference of the moon, and that was about to enter on the sun disk. It must be, although I will say though, it must be hard to take a photo of these things when you can't at the same time.
Well, you wear protective eyewear.
But the timing of it, you have to be really quick though to get a photo of those, because eclipses don't last very long, do they?
No.
On the same day, in 1618, Johann Kepler confirms his previously rejected discovery of the third law of planetary motion. He first discovered it on March 8th, but soon rejected the idea after some initial calculations. So, for the uninitiated, Kepler's law states that the ratio of the square of an object's orbital period with the cube of the semi-major axes of its orbit is the same of all objects orbiting around orbiting the same primary. This captures the relationship between the distance of planets from the sun and their orbital periods. Kepler enunciated in 1619 this third law in a laborious attempt to determine what he viewed as the music of the spheres according to precise laws and expressed in terms of musical notation. It was therefore known as the harmonic law. The original form of the law referring to not the semi-major axis, but rather a mean distance, holds true only for planets with small eccentricities near zero. This law revolutionized our understanding of planetary motion. And Professor, what's our messed up moment in nerddom this time?
In 2002, two interns working at NASA snuck in and stole a safe containing 100 grams of moon rocks.
Oh,
They apparently
really?
then took these rocks, put them on a bed, and had sex on them, which I can't imagine being very comfortable.
Wow, what? Way to devalue the moon rocks there, guys.
Yeah. So in the end, there were 5 people arrested for the theft. Thad Roberts and Tiffany Fowler, who are the ones who allegedly had sex on the bed with the rocks. Shay Sauer, Anthony Fowler, and Gordon McWhorter also took part and tried to help sell the rocks later. So they also stole a meteorite, ALH 84001, which might have revealed information about life on Mars. After
Oh,
it all blew over and they'd stolen the rocks and had activities with the rocks, they then tried to sell them to rock collectors. The FBI set up a sting, pretending to be potential buyers, met with the thieves, and arrested them. Thad Roberts was also accused of stealing dinosaur bones and other fossils from his university.
no.
Yeah, this
So
guy's a
this
bit of a klepto.
You would think NASA, in all its wisdom, would have done a criminal check on this guy before hiring him as an intern.
Well, I don't think they knew he stole the bones until he was arrested for rock theft.
I like his inspiration for why he did it, and why he stole the rock and did activities with his girlfriend on the rocks. It was
Yeah, go on.
like if he wanted to, because his girlfriend, he said like, I promised her the moon, so I gave her moon rocks.
Yeah, and none of them worked for NASA ever again. Some of them wanted to be astronauts and
Oh.
completely ruined their lives by stealing some rocks and having sex on them.
Also, you would think with exposing moon rocks to the atmosphere would be dangerous as well. In
Yeah,
terms of,
could give you silicosis, I think,
yeah, yep.
because the dust from moon rocks is extremely sharp. It hasn't been worn down by the wind and erosion.
I could actually see this as a Hollywood movie.
A heist movie
Yeah.
with a side of romance.
With tons and tons of comedy involved.
Well, start writing a script.
George Miller, I'm coming, George Miller. And as for our wacky movie, on the On 15th of May 1968, Battle Beneath the Earth came into theaters. This was directed by Montgomery Tully, and the film starred Kerwin Matthews and Vivian Ventura. And here's the plot. A Chinese general goes berserk and has a system of tunnels dug all the way from China to USA under the Pacific Ocean. Wherever there is an important military base, he places atomic bombs. US Navy soldiers go underground to repel the invaders. See,
Yeah,
that's
I don't
not
know how you do that. Like, digging a tunnel like that, where would you put all the dirt?
a... Yeah, and atomic bombs, aren't they, like, very sensitive as well?
Uh, kinda.
Oh, man. The yellow cars that were driven underground were World War II era German military vehicles made by Volkswagen called a Kubelwagen. The car wasn't sold to the public until 1971, where it was renamed The Thing in the USA and Trekker in the UK. Boy, they really need to work on those names. And for here's a picture of how the Kubelwagen looks.
Yeah, they're cute.
Yeah.
I drive one.
So many of the features in the film are reminiscent of the James Bond movies from the same era. The underground complex, the Asian villain, the female protagonist, fast cutting, and the contemporary score of the sound of the musical score. The closest companion would be of Dr. No in 1962. During all of the static shots showing the US coming to a stop in order to be quiet, one of them is from the movie Bad Day at Black Rock in 1955, showing the Southern Pacific streamliner stopping at the station. Despite being second billed, Vivian Ventura does not appear on screen until the final third of the film. And this movie has a lot of groups and plot holes, such as when the character Arnold Kramer is machine gunned down, he hits the ground dead, and then he rolls over to the wall of the cave so he wouldn't be in the path of the enemy cave tank. Yeah, can you imagine that? Just like, you're dead, man. Why are you rolling? When the atomic bomb goes off at the end of the film, the detonation site is surrounded by ships. This footage is from one of the Bikini Atoll tests, and the plot holes are funny as well, such as the plot would have us believe that all American servicemen are trained to handle and disarm nuclear devices. I mean, that's not even possible, man.
No, but there's like I'd prefer to have someone from the Department of Energy disarming a bomb because they're the people in charge of nuclear bombs in the US.
Yeah, but what about the bomb disposal units that Army
Well,
and
they're not trained on nuclear bombs,
really?
as far as I know.
Okay.
But a nuclear bomb is complex enough that you could probably disable it by cutting the red wire, because you need to go through a very specific set of steps to actually detonate a
Okay. If the government was forced to require everyone in America to be quiet so the sonic sensors could find the enemy tunnels, surely they would do so at night. Yeah, can you imagine doing this, asking people to be quiet in the daytime when everyone's working?
Yeah. Crash your economy in 5 easy steps.
Once Chinese soldiers were discovered digging tunnels under the United States so that they could plant nuclear bombs in key sites under the country, the US government would have immediately declared war on China. I mean, that makes sense. But yeah, on that note, man, it's been a fun 250 episodes, hasn't it been, Professor?
Yep.
And before we leave, we would like to say thank you all for listening to our episode for 250 of them. Damn, that's a wild ride. We'd love your support. Hopefully you can continue supporting us and make more and more episodes. And yeah, stay happy, stay nerdy. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord. We'll put the Discord in our show notes. And any other audio platform you can think of. And we'll be doing Twitch streaming on every Sundays as well. Any final words you want to add before we close out the episode,
Look
Professor?
after yourselves, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.